Welcome to the Joe Monroe Show. Now, here's your host, Joe Monroe.
Hello, pro wrestling fans, family, and fans. Welcome to a special live episode of the Joe Monroe Show. It is I, Joe Monroe, and this is the history of professional wrestling, where tonight we're going to take an in-depth look on the famous feud between Andy Kaufman and Jerry the King Lawler. Now, most of you know that earlier this morning we released a pre-recorded episode about a brief history of Jerry the King Lawler's wrestling history. And I decided, we've gotten over 130 subscribers on YouTube, and we're getting pretty close to the mark for our Facebook followers. So I was like, I want to still do a little bit something special for you all. So I decided to do this because this right here, what I'm going to talk about today, is something very special within the sport of not only entertainment, but in professional wrestling. Now, before we get started, let me go ahead and shout out some sponsors real quick. First and foremost, I want to shout out Phenomenal Finds ATL. If you have any trouble with anything with collectibles, or you're just searching for anything to start to collect, check out phenomenalfindsatl.com. I'm pretty sure they may have it. And as well as our partners and sponsors, Triple Crown Wrestling and Ultimate Championship Wrestling. They are bringing back the sport of professional wrestling as it should be to the state of Kentucky, as well as our partners and sponsors, Mayhem Media. Not only do they handle we handle professional wrestling, but we also handle all forms of media, whether it be music, TV shows, film, etc. So go check out Mayhem Media, as well as our friends and new sponsors, Charms Photos. Crystal, who you all see and hear sometimes during our lives, is the lovely lady who takes pictures of the wrestlers during the wrestling events. Makes our ugly mugs look a little bit better. Not too much, but a little bit better. So go check out her Facebook page. Go give it a follow, as well as our sponsors, Les Murphy Painting. If you have any trouble with any painting needs, contact Les Murphy at 734-334-3702. And if you all don't mind, if you're on YouTube, go check out the No Sell Roundtable, where myself and a few friends of mine from other podcasts talk about various topics of professional wrestling. Newest episode coming up, we're going to be talking about the New World Order. Yep, we're going to talk about the NWO. And, that is all the sponsors. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get this started. And what was that for? Is someone coming in? Liz! What the heck, man?
What's up, Joe?
What the heck are you doing here?
I'm here to talk about Andy Kaufman.
Okay, more the merrier.
And of course, the great Jerry Lawler.
Ladies and gentlemen, from Card Subject to Change, the Wizard CZ. He's a good friend of mine. You guys know when we hear Ric Flair's special guest is going to come on to the show. So, Wizard, thank you so much for coming on. It's great seeing you again. I missed you on this past episode of the Roundtable. This first episode you missed, man. Come on, you was on the streak.
We had a busy weekend that weekend over at the Card Subject to Change podcast. Too much going on with multiple shows and just traveling around the Midwest. So
hey, no, I'm proud of you guys for doing that.
But I'm excited to be on the next one. You said you're talking NWO. That sounds fantastic.
Yes, we are going to talk about the NWO. JD's here. Thank you, JD. Yes, we are live and in color. We're going to go back to the early 80s today, so I can say that technically. Everybody has that entrance music whenever they come onto the show. Before we do that, CZ, a big congratulations to you for an accomplishment you guys did. So, big congrats. I know that's a big milestone for you all.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No, not a problem at all. So let's get started. I mean, believe it or not, I know you were talking I know about it briefly. But this whole thing literally started because of Andy Kaufman. Now, a lot of people don't know this. Andy Kaufman, a lot of people nowadays may not know too much about Andy Kaufman. There was a TV show called Taxi. He was very important in that series. He was known as he was the foreign man. I can't remember the name of the character off the top of my. Do you remember the name of that character by chance?
Latka.
Latka. Yep, that's it. Based off his foreign man stand up that he did live. But that's basically how Andy Kaufman got his start. Now, he's always been a fan of the sport of professional wrestling, stating that Nature Boy Buddy Rogers was one of his big inspirations, getting into the sport. But when he started, he didn't wrestle men. He only wrestled women, naming himself the inaugural Women's Intergender World Heavyweight Champion. Now he was like, it was like elaborate, like 400 plus matches or something like that. That he claims to have won. Now the thing with Jerry Lawler that started everything was one of these matches. He came close to losing, and Jerry Lawler interfered. So Jerry Lawler noticed that the crowd got behind it really, really quick. And he's like, whoa, okay, maybe we can do something with this. So the next time him and Kaufman crossed paths, he tried to do it again. And this is when we get the famous promos from Andy Kaufman. You see this, folks? This is soap, not sap, not soap. It's soap. SOAP. You put it on your arm, so on and so forth. I'm telling you, man, just with those little promo things he did, especially him, everybody knows him as this, TV star, Hollywood star at the time, megastar, if you want to say. He was a megastar back then, doing it by poolside, making fun of people from the South, especially in the Memphis area. Do you think that if Andy Kaufman didn't pass away so early in his life, do you think he would have been an even more, how can I say this, catalyst for the sport of professional wrestling?
Oh, absolutely. He would definitely be front and center of everything going on over. Sorry, my brain
Oh,
is.
you're good.
I've been working all day, so my brain is going crazy.
Well, thank
But no,
God
he'd
it's
definitely
Friday.
be in the forefront. Yes, I agree with that.
Yeah,
You talk about his promos. I love the line that sticks out. He's talking directly to Jerry Lawler. You want to wrestle me? You want to wrestle me, Memphis style? Just always been one of my low-key favorites.
Yeah, he did that, and go wrestling. You want to wrestle? Like he knew how to get under people's skin. That's the beauty of it. If people want to talk about the sports entertainment aspect of it, I think Andy Kaufman 100% got that without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm happy that I think it was this past year they finally put him in the Wrestling Hall of Fame. He 100% deserves it. If any celebrity deserves it, it's Andy Kaufman. But with that being said, Jerry Lawler, they finally, Kaufman finally had it. They step into the ring, and Kaufman being the chicken I'll say this chicken shit heel that he was playing. He taunted Lawler. I actually got a picture of it right here. You see, he was calling Lawler a gorilla, and Lawler's like, "All right, I give you first shot at the headlock," and this is the infamous headlock that Andy Kaufman put on Jerry the King Lawler. Well, what many people don't know, unless you watch Vice, because Jim Cornette tells this story a lot better than what I can, because he was actually there. This was back when he was a photographer. Jerry Lawler just waited and waited, and people were like, "Oh my goodness, he's got you," and he's like, "Give me just a minute." And then he gave Kaufman a back suplex, and he folded up like an accordion, just a back suplex. Then they go on, and Lawler's like, "You know what? Forget this." Many people, I discussed this on this morning's episode. was pre-recorded for Lawler, but at the time, the pile driver was an illegal move. And if you'd done it, you got disqualified. Well, Lawler didn't really care. So he pile drove him not once, but twice. And supposedly, in quotations, broke Andy Kaufman's neck. To the point where Andy Kaufman sold it like a son of a gun, just laying still as if he actually was paralyzed. But a little bit of a backstory with this. He was like, get an ambulance. And the referee was going, Jerry, he's requesting an ambulance. We can't afford that. Goes back to Kaufman. We can't afford that. I'll pay for it. Goes back to Lawler. He said he'd pay for it. Well, all right. And that's when we get the infamous picture. You see a young Jim Cornette in that picture of Kaufman getting carted off on a stretcher. And he sold it for a good 5 months before the Letterman incident. I mean, anywhere he went, he had that freaking neck brace on. Now,
it's just great.
If that's not kayfabe, I don't know what it is.
He kept kayfabe so well, and I love the fact that you don't see stuff like that anymore. You don't see people selling like that anymore. It's really a lost art for the long-term storytelling, pretty much anywhere you go. But he was a pro at long-term storytelling, and Jerry Lawler feeding into it and leading up to that Letterman incident. That was just gold.
Yeah, and then this is when we get to the entertainment part, and I guess you could say the wrestling part of it too with kayfabe. From what I understood, Letterman was like, "Oh, it's a work, it's entertainment. We're not going to do it." And so did the producers. I think it was NBC, right? Is that when Letterman come on? Was it NBC or CBS? Yeah. NBC. And they were like, "Well, yeah, just come on." Well, little did they know, Lawler and Kaufman's like, "No, we're not doing that. We're not exposing it." And that's what it's like that quote from Sting from Ready to Rumble. He's all right by me. That right there just showed even more kudos to Kaufman not wanting to break kayfabe even more on a live televised show. Like, I'm not exposing the business. We really hate each other. And he kind of took it as the entertainment route. Like, oh yeah, I played this character. Like, I'm a character. Like, I didn't really hate him. I was just playing. I was just goofing around. And Lawler's like, I don't think it's goofy. I don't find my sport on how I make a living funny at all. Because wrestling wasn't like it is today. There was the territories, and that's how a lot of people made their money. It not WWE figures, well, depending on where you're at, probably, but a lot back then, it was a hard business to get into. Really hard business. It's like the mob. You had to know somebody to get in. Lord, I wished it was like that now, but that's hearsay. But Lawler was bringing up bringing in the aspect of a wrestler, and Kaufman was bringing in the aspect of an entertainer that knew, it was thought it was what everybody else thought it was a work. But Lawler, I remember one thing. That's not the type of man I am. Then Lawler looks at him and goes, then what type of man are you? Or what kind of a man are you? And just looks at him, and Kaufman, is getting red and red and red. And then Lawler finally stands up as hard as he could to Kaufman, and Kaufman sold it over the chair. I rewatched it today, and I was like, oh my goodness. Wow.
I wish I'd had time to rewatch that, because that's just a magical moment in the history of wrestling.
And in television.
You don't see that. You didn't see that back then.
Because you see Letterman like, that just happened? I don't know what to say here. What do I say here? Basically kind of looking at his producers like, well, we're going to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. And then I reckon after, during and after we come back, Kaufman does a big no-no. Starts cussing him, calling him an SOB and F this. I should F and sue you like I should. Blah, blah, blah. And just, takes off running, try to hide behind Letterman. Letterman's like, please get off me. for this big man that not only slaps you again, but slaps me in turn. But no, they sold it very well on the Letterman show. But a lot of people was like, NBC especially was like, oh, that's a no-no. That shouldn't have. That's promoting violence. And then Kaufman cussing like that. But you look at it from a wrestling fan's perspective, like, holy crap, they're about to go at it again. And they did. A lot of people don't know this. Me and you was talking about this before the show started. They had a match between it was Kaufman and, believe it or not, Mouth of South Jimmy Hart, because Jimmy Hart at the time was one of Jerry Lawler's rivals. Would go up against Jerry Lawler in a no DQ match. And I'll spoil something here, CZ. Kaufman wore boxing gloves this time. Best thing I've seen. I'm like, my goodness. Then, they feuded for a little while. Then, unfortunately, Kaufman ended up passing away shortly after that. I think to this day, if they would have kept it going, I think Kaufman would have helped Memphis, because at the time, especially in the 80s, this was all over the place. This was before Mania. This was before, the WWF got really huge. This was all over the place. As people would say, trending nowadays. This trended all over the place in the 80s out of all decades. So
yeah, and like we talked about off the top, you've got to think that Kaufman's influence would have been so much more in the business had he not passed away untimely. I can't, you can play what if scenarios up and down all day, but I can't even imagine some of the differences we'd see now if he hadn't passed away.
No, I agree with you. I think with Memphis Wrestling, it may still be in business today, maybe, because of the elevation, just adding someone that was not professionally trained in the sport, just elevating it as much as it did. And I think, the WWF kind of took that ball and rolled with it even more, but Memphis did it first. And I think and I agree with you with what if scenarios can go all day long. Kaufman, I personally would think that, he would either buy into Memphis or, maybe he might even owned his own little wrestling company. Who knows? That's how big of a fan he was. Yeah. But a lot of people, I would probably say, a lot of people thought they hated each other even after Kaufman passed away. Probably until Man on the Moon, when Lawler finally said, dude, we didn't really hate each other. He was like my best friend. What the heck? And like Jim Carrey didn't know that. And method acting is to Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
He literally hated Lawler even offset. And Lawler hated him in turn.
And correct me if I'm wrong, he is in the WWE Hall of Fame, correct?
He finally got into the Hall of Fame, I want to say, this past year.
Yeah, he well deserved to be in the Hall of Fame.
No. It was was it this past year or year before last? Just recently in the past couple. Yeah,
I know years, it's been recent.
He's been in the Hall of Fame. I wish he was on the video game. That would be freaking cool. But
I'd love that.
Just to see Andy Kaufman. We're getting what's this new DLC coming out? Post Malone and Friends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're getting Post Malone, but in turn we are getting the Headbangers and Honky Tonk Man finally, and Jimmy Hart. Speaking of Jimmy Hart, he's going to be in this one too.
That I'm excited for.
Yes, that's going to be cool. But with back to Lawler, everybody knows after that Lawler became a huge success. But I think without that feud, I hate saying this, I don't think he would have gotten as much success. That's what a lot of people kind of debate about, because Lawler goes, if it wasn't for Kaufman, I wouldn't be as big as I was today. because it was
And
just
that's,
something so simple.
yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, in all honesty, Andy Kaufman put Jerry Lawler on the map as far as the national wrestling scene goes back in the day. And he's probably right. He probably wouldn't be where he is today without Kaufman's influence.
Yeah, and I can kind of see and I can kind of agree with that because as I stated earlier with like the trending, this was 82 when this happened. 82, 83. And just getting something out there, you can have local newspapers. Sure, and Memphis had that. They had the local newspapers and everything. But to get broadcast on, national televised cable, come on. It was turning some heads. And believe it or not, a lot of people don't know this little tad bit, but Kaufman went to Vince's dad first about doing this with one of his guys. Yes. And
I didn't
Vince,
know that.
yeah, and Vince Sr. turned it down. He's like, well, why would I let a scrawny guy like you come in to my business and try to take on one of my big guys?
And
Finally,
I can understand that to an extent because WWF has always been the land of the giants.
right.
It'd be hard to picture him in that situation, but at the same time, just think of the influence that would have had, playing the what if game again.
Yeah, but to me, it's. I think everything fell in place as it should because chemistry is key in wrestling, which you and I both know that. And I think Lawler and Kaufman both had great chemistry with each other, and that's what made that rivalry so special. And that's why I wanted to cover it kind of like a little extra tidbit today, because it is special, not only in entertainment, but especially for professional wrestling. Because Memphis style wrestling is kind of what you see in WWE today.
Yeah.
They kind of adapted that Memphis style. And a great example is this feud with Lawler and Kaufman. And I'm just sitting here thinking of this scenarios. I'm like, what if Kaufman decided to follow Lawler into the WWF in the 90s when he had a feud with Piper? Just with Piper. Think about that feud, because Piper, They Live was already out, and Hell Comes to Frog. Lord, that movie. Hell Comes to Frog Down was out. He was known as an actor and wrestler, so that would have been a good segue for Kaufman to come back to either be on the side of Lawler, since Lawler was the heel at the time, or be on the side of Piper.
Yeah, definitely would be a good opportunity there. Let me ask you this, Joe. Let me spit this out. Would we see the likes of a Pat McAfee or a Logan Paul stepping in the ring? Pat McAfee, I'm referencing from NXT mostly because that's where he made his debut. But would we see these celebrities stepping in the ring like a Johnny Knoxville if Kaufman hadn't done it first?
That's an excellent question. I would say eventually, maybe. But it wouldn't have been as prominent as it was. Like I don't think we would have had Cyndi Lauper in WrestleMania or anything like that, or Mr. T getting involved. Because an idea comes from another idea, as I always say. And that right there was one of the original ideas. I know Muhammad Ali got involved in some, in the WWF, but I mean, Muhammad Ali's Muhammad Ali. Come on. That's a different scenario. That's the world's champion boxer right there. Of course, he's going to get in there with the wrestler and not be afraid. But this is Andy Kaufman, out of all people. This is the guy who, thank you very much, did that on Taxi. I love Taxi. If you all haven't seen it, I think it's on, what's that? The Freebie, is that what it's called? Not a sponsor, but Freebie.
Freeview or Freebie, something like that.
Something like that. But if you all get a chance, for all the younger generation out there, I was raised on those shows, so I can say that. Go watch it. It's a great show, underrated show. You'd be surprised who's actually on that. Danny freaking DeVito. A very young Danny DeVito's on there. But Kaufman, Christopher Lloyd, yes. He was on there. Who's the actor that played Kaneki in Grease? He's also on there too.
I can't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, he was on there. Just a lot of great actors and actresses was on that. But Kaufman did steal the show with that because he was like a minor character, like a background character. Then his role slowly grew as the seasons went on. And I think that's what, caught the eyes like, hey, this guy's got national exposure. He's wanting to do this. Let's freaking do it. Even though Jerry Jarrett said it was the craziest thing I ever heard, but if it draws money, it draws money, which is thinking like a promoter. But back to Vince Sr., I think it was a missed opportunity. I wouldn't. You see, I can't think. Was it who was the champion around that time? It wasn't Hogan. It was Backlund was champion at the time, right? Yep. I'm like, well, I can kind of see him getting with Backlund because Backlund really isn't that big of a guy, even back then. But then again, I can kind of see where Senior's coming from because why would, that's going to damage the rep here. But if he would have came to the WWF at the time, I think it would have changed the game from them way early on.
Big time.
Yeah, definitely. Just thinking of like all the feuds that can happen. The Piper one stuck out to me earlier when I was thinking of stuff like what if scenarios. I'm like, yeah, him and Piper going with Lawler and his his nights that he had, like during the Hart reign, he could have still had them. Terry Gordy was his executioner, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
So imagine Kaufman getting picked up, Terry Bam Bam Gordy out of all people, scoop slam, and him sell it. Oh man, that would have been great. And Kaufman had his own title. I mean, it was the Women's Intergender World Championship, but it was his own title. He had it made. So technically, he was a champion in wrestling. A lot of people are like, "You're counting that?" I'm counting it. Yep. I would say he was a great sports entertainer, not a wrestler.
Oh, I agree. And a lot of that filtered out into his own work, where not just the foreign man or Latka, but he had that Tony Clifton character that he would bring out every once in a while.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah, just like Tony Clifton, which people still like the Kaufman. I can go into the Kaufman rabbit hole if I wanted to with the conspiracy theory of him faking his own death, but we're not doing that today. But with that, yeah, he had plenty of characters in the bag. He was a great character actor. And I think that's what made it work in professional wrestling. Just that character, the characteristics of him being in there. But folks, if you're watching this, go ahead and comment any questions or any additional questions you can think of about Kaufman and Lawler. We'll be happy to try and answer those. But back to what you were asking me earlier, I think Kaufman was the genesis of celebrities getting into the wrestling business. We see today, as you stated, Pat McAfee. To be completely honest with you, I think Pat McAfee is one of the best color commentators there is.
I agree. I completely agree.
And Logan Paul. Oh.
And you talk about chemistry, going back to Pat McAfee, him and Cole have chemistry in droves.
Oh, yeah. I think they have better chemistry than what Cole and Lawler did.
I can agree with that for sure.
Yeah. But look at Logan Paul. I was one of those people that was like, really? A YouTuber? Really? He's going to wrestle? Then he gets in there and it's like, okay, he's taking this seriously. Let's see what he can do. And he's done great in his career.
He overperforms with his matches, in my opinion. Not in a bad way. Not in a bad way.
He does, but again, he's an entertainer. And he knows how to entertain a crowd. Plus, his wrestling style, mixing in wrestling with that. May have missed it if you all talked about this, but did you guys? What did you guys think of The Man in the Moon with Jim Carrey as Kaufman? I apologize for more spelling, JD. I thought that movie was pretty well done. You couldn't have asked anybody else, I don't think, to play Kaufman. It was nice to see not only David Letterman come back for this specific aspect in Kaufman's life and his career, but it was also nice to see Jerry Lawler actually come in and do it, because there's nobody else that could have played Jerry Lawler. My spelling and my English errors. It's okay, JD. But yeah, I think Carey, he did phenomenal as
He
playing
did.
Kaufman.
He knocked it out of the park.
Now there is a documentary. I think is it Netflix only series, not a sponsor, but there is a documentary about the behind the scenes of that. So it's something to look at. But I look at Carey at a different light after that. I was like, oh wow, he's a little bit of a jerk in that. Okay, well, I kind of feel bad. But yeah, man, the man in the moon was good. So I'm sitting here thinking, like, what else would Kaufman contribute? If Kaufman was alive today, because he wasn't that old, he was fairly young whenever he passed away. Would he still be contributing to wrestling? Well, hang on. Here's something. Look at Freddie Prinze Jr. We'll use him as a big example. He was an actor. He was a celebrity. But later on in life, he was a writer for WWE.
Yeah, and there's been talk for the last year or two that he's working on building his own wrestling company because he's that big of a fan.
Yeah, and I think he can do it.
I think so too. I'd be excited to see what he puts out.
Yeah, it would. And his writing during that time was pretty good. But there's another example of, because Kaufman and Lawler wrote their own feud. So you can, I would say Kaufman was a great storyteller. I mean, he already was, keeping it kayfabe, but he would have been a great writer, I would think. Let's see. Did you guys know if that was an accurate depiction of his life and career?
I think mostly.
Mostly.
They took some liberties.
We touched. I touched bases on like the Lawler thing. Like they didn't. Carey didn't know that him and Kaufman and Lawler were best friends, and he thought they actually hated each other. Which, hey, kudos for them for making it look like a work all those 10, 15 years down the road. But Lawler says, especially in that documentary of behind the scenes of making that movie, dude, we were friends. What the heck are you talking about? Oh man. But yeah, that's the Kaufman and Lawler feud. That's something I love to touch basis on. That's a great. Believe it or not, that's one thing I want. If you're new to professional wrestling, and if you want to see something entertaining, and mixed with a little bit of great storytelling, this is the feud to watch. I know it's not Hogan and Piper. It's not Sting and Flair or anything like that. No, this is pure entertainment, down home professional wrestling. Because you had the bigger guy. It was weird. You would think Kaufman being the smaller guy, he would have been the underdog, but it was Lawler that kind of made himself the underdog because Kaufman wouldn't shut the heck up. People just like, would you just shut him? Especially people from the South. Would you just shut him up? I mean, he's made fun of us, did everything. Let's just smack the crap out of him. Oh man! If wrestling was like,
no, go ahead.
Steve.
I was just gonna say, he played such a great heel, because he was someone that you just wanted to see get the crap kicked out of him. And that that is one of the marks of a good heel. Obviously, there are different varieties of the bad guy in wrestling, but having him just portray himself as this guy you just want to see get slaughtered by someone, it just put him that much further over the top.
Oh yeah. I agree with you. I'm just remembering. So I really wish, folks, we can show these promos he did without getting a copyright strike. If I ever know how to do that, we'll start doing that. But man, just this it's soap, not sap, not soap, soap, SOAP. That's probably my favorite. That's my favorite promo from Kaufman. Then him just being interviewed for those 5 months with a freaking neck brace on. I think he sold that. I think that's tied with Bob Orton in his arm cast.
Yes.
I think that's possibly tied. Oh man. But this was a great time going down memory lane. This is what I love about the history of professional wrestling. I may start having more guests on, such as yourself, CZ. Thank you for coming on this wonderful episode. It was great. Go ahead and give him a round of applause here, Dave. Because CZ's always hard subject to change is great. We need to get Nick back on here because Nick's phenomenal too. You got yourself a great broadcast partner, by the way. But
I couldn't do it without him.
You couldn't. You said you couldn't do it without him.
No.
Well,
I mean, I have, but I don't like it.
Well, that's sweet. Dave, shut up. Dave's over here trying to. I hate you right now. Okay, stop it. All right. Well, this has been great, CZ. Again, thank you. I definitely get you on. I think we put a date on there for July. I'm not announcing it yet, but I will soon, folks. Relax. But I will be back Tuesday. Got my days mixed up there. And we're going to talk about Funko Pops. Man, could you imagine an Andy Kaufman WWE Funko Pop?
Oh, I'd love one of those. I have about 40.
Actually, I have his figure right here.
Oh yes,
the Jack Specific.
That is
figure.
Awesome.
Complete with neck brace.
With neck brace. I love it.
And I got the stretcher because these came loose, of course. I got the stretcher somewhere, but yeah, this is great. If you guys want me to review this, I might review this maybe Sunday or something. I don't know. But yeah, this is hands down one of the best figures Jack Specific ever released. I don't care what anybody says. I wish I had the red and black Lawler that went with this. I can never find him. No, I got sidetracked there. We started talking about figures. Yeah. All right. Well, folks, this has been great. CZ, what do you got going on Card Subject to Change?
So we actually have a double shot this weekend. Sunday at noon, we'll be interviewing Eric Esnight, Midwest favorite. He is the Chosen, leader of the Chosen. He'll be on at noon, and then first-time guest on the show goes by the name of Matt Hatter, another prominent Midwest wrestler. He'll be on at our normal time at 6:30. So I'm excited. We've got a returning guest. We've got a new guest. It should be a fun weekend.
All right, that sounds great, brother. I'm happy you all are killing it and still grinding with it. If you all can, go check out Card Subject to Change. Go like and subscribe to them, and go follow them on Facebook and all their other social media outlets. But until next time, pro wrestling fans, this is Joe Monroe with the Wizard CZ, and I will see you next time. And for goodness sakes, always, 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 always support the crazy sport of professional wrestling. Dave, go ahead and take us out, buddy.
You've been listening to the Joe Monroe Show with Joe Monroe. Don't forget to like and subscribe.